Howdy. Welcome to TeleDynes live stream. It's been a while. We're going to try out this new format here today and see how this works. So we're going to be doing, like it showed, a guitar technique every week. And then we'll be doing a song breakdown and going over some music theory and then maybe questions and answers and stuff. A Q&A at the end if there's anything in the chat. So the first thing we'll start off with is the something simple, rhythm, rock and roll bass line. Now there are many different variations in the way you can play this. Of course, you have swing versus straight, which we'll get into in a later in another stream, exactly like breaking that down and the feel and all of that. But for now, I'll just stick with swing since that's primarily what rockabilly kind of revolves around. So we have your typical walking bass line that sounds something like this. Or exactly like that, right? So that's the 1, the 3, the 5, the 6, flat 7, and then back down. Right? So that's what is also referred to as a boogie-woogie bass line. And you're playing the 8th notes there. Or straight. Whichever you prefer. Or whatever the song calls for. And then, of course, you switch chords and do the same thing. And that's a pretty common way to keep your rhythm going. And you want to palm mute usually, especially if the vocals are going on. Then you have a couple other variations of this. You have an octave. You can play an octave. You don't necessarily have to go up to the flat 7. You can do something like this. Instead of going to the flat 7, you go to the octave. And back down. You can also do a little skip. You hear this a lot in the Johnny Burnett stuff. Right? And another variation, you can just go to the 6 and back. You don't necessarily have to go to the 7th or the octave. But with this, you don't usually walk it back down. You just go right back down to the E or the root. Right? So then you have another one. One's based off of the major scale. Now this one isn't really played too much anymore, but if you listen to Bill Haley in the comments, you hear that probably mostly through with Bill Haley in the comments. That's where you hear it most of the time. In fact, Rock Around the Clock is where you'll hear this line. I'll play it in A since that's the key the song is in. You could play it in E too. And what that is root, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and back down to the root. Right? And the bass is playing that too. Not as common these days. You don't really hear it too much. But again, when you listen to the older rockabilly stuff, you'll hear that a little bit more. And then another rhythm technique you can do. This one works more over a slower blues shuffle. It's kind of a rolling minor 3rd to 3rd up to the 5th. and then to the 6 and back down. We've all heard that before, right? You can also go right back down to the root. Like some sort, like a country tune you might play something like that in a medium tempo or slower tempo country song. Or a blues. You can pick every note or do a hammer on and kind of roll it up to the 5th. Back to the 5th. Roll again from the minor third to the 3rd. 5th, root. And that works pretty well with the medium tempo to slower tempo songs. You wouldn't run if you try to play it on something too fast, it kind of gets messy real quick. Although you can do it. Definitely want to do the hammer on for that instead of picking individual strings. I feel like the palm muting in those cases will help the clarity of the notes. Especially if you play with the bridge pickup. And again, the technique with the palm muting, we'll get into that in another later stream, but just to try to compartmentalize all of these different techniques. But palm muting is super important because you don't want to play over the top of the vocals. If you're backing somebody up or you're singing yourself, then the guitar is just going to be over the top of everything, and you'll be struggling to get over the top of the guitar, and you're competing with yourself. So you don't want to do that. So that's why you want to palm mute it, and you don't want to constantly be adjusting your volume on the guitar or have to worry about volume pedals or anything. And it's just easier to palm mute it, and also learn the technique to play a little bit lighter too. Just ease back on your how much force you're using the pick. You're picking the strings with, even without palm muting. So I can put a lot of force into it, or play it lighter. And that's just dynamics and getting used to what's going to work and what's not going to work. And practicing dynamics as a band is a good idea. It's boring, but it definitely can help the band get used to that, playing together, and like try it in a solo or something. If there are those of you out there that are playing in a band or play live, at the end of the solo, or try it when you come around after a turnaround after a solo, bring the band down. Try to play soft, or slowly bring the band down over the course of a couple of verses, and then slowly bring it back up again. You practice that yourself, of course, but that's something that it can definitely come in handy, and it's impressive to the audience to hear the band and go real quiet, and then boom, you hear it just open up the gates. All right, well, that's the technique for today, for this week, and we'll go over another technique next week. So for now, I'm going to try again, kind of getting used to this new format here, and it's been several months since I've done a live stream. So we'll go to the next step, and the next step is song breakdown. The next segment, I should say. Okay, I put these little transitional videos in there. I thought they were fun. So I chose Stray Cat Strut. I've gone over this before, but I chose it because I'm familiar with it. I'm sure everybody else is. And just to make it easy to get used to this new format. And I don't know if I've ever really gone over this stuff with having the sheet music in front of me, or at least the chords. So we're not going to go over the leads or anything like that. We're just going to go over the chord structure and how it all works together. So, of course, everyone's familiar. It's a pretty common chord progression. You hear it in many, many songs. It's not unique to this one. You've got songs like Summertime, Hit the Road Jack, you know, that sort of stuff. It's a very, very common bass line in a minor key. So we're in C minor, the relative minor, but we're actually in E flat, right? That's why you see the key here. If you're familiar with sheet music, it says E flat, right? And the first chord is the C minor, usually played in this bar chord form up here on the 8th fret. And then we go to the B flat 7. Now, if we're in C minor, that B flat 7 would be considered a flat 7 chord. But when we think about chords or naming not chord inversions, but when we think about the chord numbers within the scale degrees, we're really talking about the major scale. So it's really B flat would be a 5. So you would have 6, 5, 4, 3. You can, in minor, it would be 1, flat 7. What is that? 6? Yeah. 5. 1, flat 7, 6, 5. So all of that is just based on the scale degrees, which we'll get into actually in the music theory segment of this the live stream here. So that's the main bulk of the tune here. These 4 chords and these inversions. I'll show you the there's your C minor and your B flat 7. There it is. A flat. Everyone's familiar with these bar chords, right? And then when we go to the second part of the verse, it's not really a bridge, but it goes to the 4. So it's almost like you're voicing in fourths. You go up to the 4, and you're going to and you're playing F minor. Again, the 4 of the minor key. And you play E7, standard bar chord form, B flat 7, C7. Same pattern, you're just playing these chords down here. This bar chord form versus this. If everybody's just starting out on bar chords, the first one you probably learn is the F, and then you learn the B flat, right? So you usually refer to it as the F bar chord and the B flat bar chord. So that's what you're doing. You're doing that same shape, but up here on the 8th fret. But you're playing the minor version first, and then 7. Alternatively, you can play F minor. You can play an E flat 9. Seen it played that way too. It's really just personal preference, what you want to do there. That's the great thing I love about playing rockabilly and playing swing music in general. Is you can substitute a lot of different chords, and you don't have to worry too much about whether or not they're going to work. They usually do, right? Especially if it's swinging. And a couple of other alternative versions to these chords. When you're going down to, on the first section of this, instead of just playing a G7, you can play a G7 sharp 5. You can play it like this, which is this version. This one here. So it's your index finger on the third, on the E string, second finger on the third string, on the fourth string, the F, G, F, and then your ring finger on the fourth string, G string, third string, and then your little finger on the fourth fret, second string. And you're muting the top string and the A. So the E and the A are muted. Or you can play it as a you can play it as a full bar chord form like this. That would be that one right there. So it's the same thing. It's just that you're adding in the top G and you're using your little finger to hit the D on the A string. So it would sound right, as opposed to the seventh. Again, that's how you can change and add different inversions of different chords, and they work. Let's see. So then we have the bridge. The bridge is just F minor. Just like before. Back to the C7. Back to the F. 1, 4, 1. Pretty common. And then we go to a 2. Dominant 2. A D7. To this. Now this is interesting because the way the program spelled it out was F diminished, C flat in the bass. But you can also play this same turnaround here. You're here on bar 17, you see a D7. You play a D7 down here. Right? That's 5th fret, 5th fret, 5th string, 4th fret, 4th string, 5th fret, 3rd string, 3rd fret, 2nd string, muting the top strings. I'm sure everybody's played that inversion before. And then you go to an A flat minor 6. If you're not familiar with that chord, that's 4th fret, 6th string, mute the A, 3rd string, 4th string, 3rd fret, 3rd string, 4th fret, and then with your ring finger, and then with your little finger, 4th fret, 2nd string, muting the top string. Very similar to the G sharp, G7 sharp 5 we just played. You're just raising the bass note up a half step. The only difference in those two chords. And so, a lot of this comes down to how you spell the chord, what you name it, right? So, forget the tablature for a second. If you look at the notes, you've got a B natural, right? And you've got an F, A flat, and an E flat. Well, over here, we've got an we've got an A flat in the bass. Got an F, like over here, A flat. It's different inversion, but it's still there. Same notes. E flat's on the top. F, F, A flat, B natural, B natural. Same notes. But because of the inversion, you name it something different. Now, usually it doesn't matter when you get in if you just have basic triads and sevenths and stuff like that. It doesn't matter which way you play the chord. The inversion doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really matter in which way you play it. Ultimately, the sound is going to be similar. This is all technically how it technically would name it, but you could flip the names of this. You could call this, and this, that, and it would still be the same chord. A lot of it comes down to where it is in the progression and personal preference and how you want to change it. You know, if this was a passing chord instead of a chord you're going to sit on for a full bar, then you might want to call it something like this. Again, it's personal preference. So then you have the ending chord, which is the only other difference here, the only other remaining chord that I haven't played yet, and that is the way I've spelled it here. I called it a C minor 6 add 9, because you got a C, the 10th fret, you got a C here, you got an E flat, you've got an A, there's your 6, and then you've got a D on the top. There's your 9. C minor 6 add 9. And the reason why it's add 9 and not just a 9 is because we don't have a flat 7th. That would be a flat 7th. And you could put the bass in there. C in the bass there. Right? So that's why you say you hear that's why you see either add 9 or add 2 or 4, whatever the case may be. Because you're adding the note to the major chord. You're not supporting it. It's not a dominant chord. You're not supporting it with the flat 7. So the flat 7 is always the qualifier, and that's when you can have a 13. That's the difference between add 13 versus add 9. And add 13, you're just adding the 13, which is the 6th. It's the same thing, to the chord. So that's another 6 chords when you see A6, C6, or whatever, like a blues song. A6. You hear this all the time. I'll go back to full screen for a second. Right? That's a 6. But it's also an add 13. The same chord. It just depends on how you spell it. And technically, a 13 should be the highest note. Whoop. So you would have this sound. Right? An add 13. So if you had a 13, you'd have the flat 7th in there. But a lot of the times we put the root on the top. Again, it just depends on the inversion, and it's all clear as mud, right? You get used to these things as you start playing different inversions. You get used to what works, what doesn't, and you'll start seeing hey, that shape is the same as that chord over there, but this is named a whole different thing. It's like, yeah, because it's the same chord. It's just spelled differently. Just like that. Could be an A6, but it's also an F sharp minor 7. All this stuff kind of over time, as you start playing these things, you'll start to make these connections visually and theoretically, and in your head too. All right, so that's the song breakdown for Stray Cat Strut. You know, if anybody wants like a full video lesson on it or something, let me know, either in chat or in the comments or something like that. I don't the chat, if anybody does chat, if I don't see it while we're live, it disappears. So, but you can leave a comment in the video later under the live tab, because this whole stream will be available after we're done and it finishes processing or whatever. All right. So moving on to the next segment, which is, we went over some music theory here, but I'm going to start doing try to do a music theory course here on the live stream as opposed to making it a lesson. But I will be clipping some of these things and try to make individual videos for each segment as we go along with the live stream. All right, so next is music theory. Okay. Now, I figure the best place to start is the very beginning. So, the first thing you really need to learn is scale. The scales. The chromatic scale, 12 notes. This microphone up a little bit so I can get closer. All right, so we got C, C sharp, D, D sharp, so on and so forth, all the way up to B, and then C back down. So sharps up, flats down. That's your basic 12-note foundation for Western music. Then we have your major scale, and that is the foundation of pretty much everything for Western music. Every other scale is a derivative or is related to the major scale. Modes are displacements of major scales, so they are the same as a major scale. The only difference between Ionian mode, right, or Dorian, is it's the same scale as, let's say, C, but you start on the D note, right? So Dorian mode, it depends on what key you're playing in, right? But it's still just a displacement of the major scale of the key that you're playing in. So right now we're just going to start. We'll get into modes in another lesson or another stream, but for now we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We'll start here with the major scale. So major scale is 7 notes, 8 notes with the octave: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now these little marks here was the best I could do to show you where the half steps and the whole steps are. So the formula, I guess you could say, or the pattern for a scale would be whole step, whole tone, depending on your vernacular, whole tone, half step, semitone, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So the half steps are between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8 for the major scale. That is crucial to know. Once you know that, that is the foundation. If you don't know that, it's going to just make everything else more complicated later on. But if you have this as a foundation, it can help you do everything from building on top of that to adding scales, new scales, chords, creating your own chords, figuring out what the chords are and how they're built, right? As well as intervals and everything, depending on how far you want to take it, right? And all of this stuff can help with soloing and improvisation, lead playing, all of that stuff. This is kind of the like I said, the very beginning of everything. So then the same thing here. That's C. Then we go to D. I've typed out every key here so you can see it, but we go D, D, E, F sharp. And why it's F sharp is because, again, the pattern. Whole step to E, D to E, And then another whole step from E goes to F sharp, not to F, because F, there are two natural half steps between E and F and B and C, as we can see up here in the chromatic scale. C, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. There you go. There's your natural half step. And then you go up here, C, or B to C. So as we play this, I'll play a major scale, or I'll play the chromatic scale. That's 12 notes, all the way up the octave. C, C sharp, D, E, and F. Right? So with the C scale, there are no accidentals. It's all natural. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The natural half steps fall between on the 3 and the 4 and the 7 and the 8. So when you get to other keys, because you're starting on a different note, your starting note is different, it's going to change where those half steps are. So as a result, you're going to end up with accidentals. D, E, F sharp to G, because instead of going to G sharp, we just go to G because it's a half step. Then A, B, C sharp to D, natural half step. And it keeps going like this. And I've moved on to E flat. If you notice, I didn't put C sharp and D sharp here because we'll get to that. I did that for a reason. When you go to E flat, it's the same thing. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Same pattern everywhere you go. Same thing here with F. Scale, added a bar there. But anyway. G, same thing. F, G. Sorry, we'll go back to E. E, F sharp, G sharp to A, half step, B, C, C sharp to D sharp, and D sharp to E, half step. And I have E flat here instead of D sharp, right? And there is no E sharp, so we go to F. And because of that pattern, where the half steps are, you end up with one accidental, the B flat. Same thing with G. You end up with one accidental, the F sharp, on the 7th. The A, you have 3. A, B, C sharp to D, E, F sharp, G sharp to A, right? And then we go to B flat. We have 2. And then we have more here with the key of B. Now this one, again, it's the same pattern though. You just end up with 5 sharps. It looks scary. And I know it did for me when I first started seeing all those, what's all that crazy writing there? But it really isn't that big a deal. So here's C sharp. Now there's a reason why you do C sharp and D flat. These are the 2 keys. Well, the next 3 keys are the ones that are not very common, at least not in rock and roll. You hear it, funny enough, in pop music quite a bit. And the reason for that is mostly to do with singers, their range. And it's wherever their vocal tends to land and what's more comfortable for them, so that you can end up in these odd keys. But C sharp is easy. It's just everything's a sharp. That's it. You just raised everything up. So it's easy to read. D flat, you have five flats instead of everything being sharp. Now it depends on what your preference would be. That's what you call enharmonic. They're the same thing. It doesn't really matter whether it's C sharp or D flat. The only time something like that matters is you wouldn't want to write a score for a string section, for example. You wouldn't want to write some things in C sharp and other things in D flat because of the way string players, there's no frets. So when people play in a sharp key, they tend to play just a little bit ahead, just a little bit on top of the note on the string. And when they play a flat key, it's a little bit back, a little bit behind. So you want to make sure everybody's kind of doing the same motion. You can end up with a weird dissonance there if you're not careful. Not that anybody, I don't know if anybody here is orchestrating for symphonies, but that's the rule that I was taught. So, so then we get to F sharp and G flat. Similar situation, very uncommon keys. We have 6 sharps as opposed to what is that? 1, 2, 3, 6 as opposed to 6 flats. So pick your poison, right? It just depends on which way you want to write these things. But this is a good exercise to do if you're so inclined, is to just write these out either by hand or in a computer or whatever, and just follow that pattern. That's why I'm showing you all of this stuff. It seems repetitive, but the idea is you get that formula or pattern in your head, so that way you can go through and you get familiar with all of the keys. That way, when you're playing a song and somebody says, "Oh, key of whatever B," and you know it, you know what it is. And then we get into G sharp versus A flat. Now here, you typically would only do A flat, you wouldn't do G sharp. And the reason for that is because it's the one key that's enharmonic that has a double sharp. So unnecessarily complicated. Why play in a key that has 6 sharps plus a double sharp when you can just play in a key that has 4 flats? It's just easier. So typically, you won't see the key of G sharp. You'll just see A flat. And then here, is this it? Yeah. C flat. Unnecessary. I've seen that before. I've seen some songs, they say, oh, it's in the key of C flat. Why? It's just the key of B. In fact, I left it blank here because I wanted to show you what the computer does when it tries to do. I say C flat, it changes it to B. Even it knows that it's unnecessary. So that's the major scale, and that's the kind of the foundation. That's why I wanted to start there with this with the first video segment on music theory, and we'll go along. I think next week I'm going to do we'll do chords, and we'll get into modes and intervals, and we'll just keep going as far as we can take it. And hopefully you guys find it interesting and you learn something. So this here at the bottom is your key signatures. So this is what you'll see on a piece of sheet music to indicate what key you're in. You're not going to see these notes on the top, C, G, D, A, E. You're not going to see that. You're just going to see the accidentals. So with C, there's nothing, obviously. With G, you'll see 1 sharp. You'll just see that, but you won't see the chord. So you have to, this is kind of something you have to commit to memory, which is the reason for when I took my music theory courses, the very first thing we had to do was write out all of the major scales. I was told to do it by hand. Well, the computer tech back then wasn't as accessible as it is today, but although finale did exist. But yeah, when you see this is F sharp. You see two sharps, you know that's D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, and so on. Typically for rock and roll, rockabilly type stuff, even swing, you're probably going to see a lot of B flat. You'll see a lot of F. You'll see E flat, maybe some A flat. You'll see G and C. You could see a D. You could see D, A, and E. Those are more rock and roll chords or rock and roll keys. Same with B. And the reason for that is because of the instrumentation. When you're playing in the key of E, it's easy. A lot of open chords are in E. It's very conducive for the guitar. Same with A and D and everything else. G, it works very well for the guitar. Where when you're playing in something like E flat, you have to get a little bit more creative. But the reason why you see that with swing music is because, or in jazz and stuff, is because usually horns are involved, and when you have a trumpet, they play a whole step above, a second above everything else. So if you're playing in the key of C, they're playing in the key of D. So that would be two sharps for them. And that's why you'd see playing in B flat. Because it's easy for the guitar player, it doesn't really matter, right? You're playing this C, or you go down to B flat, right? So you could play, if I'm playing in B flat, it doesn't really matter that much chord-wise, if I'm playing a lot of that stuff. Where with the horns, if I'm playing in B flat, they're going to be what? A whole step up. That's going to put them in C, which means no accidentals, no flats, no sharps for them. Super easy key for them to play in. Same thing with A flat brings them to B flat, two flats. You play an F, it'll bring them to G. Or E flat brings them to F, one flat. So a lot of that stuff tends to be making the horn player's life easier, at least if it's a B flat horn. They're playing alto, then they're a sixth above what you're playing. So if you're playing in C, they're going to be in A. And if you're playing in B flat, they're going to be in G. A lot of the same rules still apply, though. It's still easier for them than anything else. So this is everything. This is the foundation of everything. If anybody's interested, if they want a copy of this, I can upload it to the website where I put all the charts for the lessons. Just let me know in the comments, and I will upload a PDF of it to the website. And I probably will anyway when I make this. So I clip this into a separate video that will be available on the main video channel and in its own playlist under Music Theory. All right. Well, I mean, that pretty much sums up the lessons and the segments for today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I'll give a little bit of channel updates here. I know it's been a while for me on the live stream. I've just had a lot going on, a lot of personal stuff. I've had some been tough for me to play. I'd had some like whatever you call it, tennis elbow or something for a while. It's pretty much gone now. But also just day job work stuff. It's just been tough to try to get to doing the live streams during the summertime with gigs on top of everything else. And that's also why the video uploads have been a little on the slower side too, because it takes a while to produce these things, get everything all put together. And I've been working on other product videos and stuff like that people offer. Here, can you do a review on this? And so that kind of, when I do have time to work on the channel, I end up having to focus on that because there is kind of sort of a deadline. Not really, but it ends up getting to be a priority. So I'm not going to do any more gear reviews for a little bit. I want to get back to doing some lessons. I want to doing the breaking down the songs, and also I talked about a while ago doing some podcasts, and I'm finally getting some done. It's been more difficult than I thought to get people to want to take the time and do something like this. So I got at least one that'll be edited probably within the next week or so, and that'll be the first of many, hopefully. And we'll keep doing these live streams every Sunday, see how they go until about around the same time, about 2 o'clock. And I was doing it at Saturday at 4, and that just ultimately wasn't working out because it would be either too much of a rush for me to do this and then have to go play a show, or would just be in the middle of just trying to get, take care of errands and everything else after the week on a Saturday. But Sunday's usually my chill, relaxing day anyway, so it works out. And the next video that we've got, probably the most requested song, I was going to do This Cat's on a Hot Tin Roof because it's one of my favorites to play, and I already know it, and it's easy to just, make a video on something you know. But the most requested song has been Double Talkin' Baby by the Stray Cats, so that's going to be the next tune. Right? So that's the first part. So I've known that riff for a while, That's the end. I mean, that's the core of the tune, and then it's just 1-4-5 solos in between. So one of the reasons I haven't done the song was because it's just, if you were to play that live, at least for me, I would just improv the solos. I never really thought of that song as uh, a song that you would learn note for note. But I guess enough people have requested it, so I'm just got to take the time and kind of commit those solos to memory, because they're I wouldn't say they're difficult, but it's half of playing a solo like that note for note. It's not necessarily the technical ability to play the individual riffs. It's just memorizing all of it and keeping it straight in your head to try to figure out, well, this goes to this part and that goes to that, especially if it's just, and it just kind of, something like that just flows naturally, and you're not really thinking about, like, I just played whatever came to mind. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what I just played. So that sort of thing just, and I just, memorize you have all these kind of riffs in your back pocket, and you just kind of pull them out and you improvise. And that's what I would do if I were playing the song live. But I will learn the solos and try to do the best of my ability to play that, interpret that. And of course, I'll have the tablature. I'll have all the, everything else normally. So, and I will be focusing on the Stray Cats version, not the Gene Vincent version, because that's the one that's been requested. So they're pretty much the same thing, except for the solos. It's a little slower, like the tempos goes up and down quite a bit more than the Stray Cats version, but yeah. So that'll be next, and and I've got a couple other videos in the can, tips for beginners if you're just starting out on the guitar and playing live, and tips for playing in a 3-piece band, because it's a little different than if you're playing in a 4-piece band. You're filling in a lot of space if you're playing you're the only one playing all the leads, all the rhythm, everything else. So if you're playing as the second guitar player with a keyboard and all of this other stuff. It's like you're barely playing. Every time I do a gig like that where I'm playing with a keyboard player and maybe another guitar player or horns and all this other stuff, I did nothing. I played some chords and maybe I get a solo thrown my way, and I feel like I barely played because I'm so used to playing in a three-piece where I do, doing all the heavy lifting melodically. So if you're not used to that, it's a different dynamic. It might take a little bit of some of that is the sound too. All right, and I know a bunch of people have commented and they've asked a bunch of questions about gear settings and whether it's guitar settings, amp settings, not just the Bassman, but also the little Fender Mustang that I was using. I'm going to make a video just answering everybody's questions as opposed to trying to reply to everybody individually, so I can just make sure it's all there. And of course, if anybody else is interested and was curious, you'll have the info. Alrighty, well, thank you guys again. I really appreciate you guys hanging out, joining the live stream. I know it's been a while. Until next week, Sunday at 2 o'clock, and we'll continue the segments and keep on rocking. Take care.